Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the Sk'ad'a Stories Series book launch. We are launching today Dancing with Our Ancestors and Returning to the Yaqun River. These are books 3 and books 4 in the series that are written by Sarah Florence Davidson and Robert Davidson, illustrated by Janine Gibbons, and edited at Highwater Press by Desiree Workington. I am Kirsten Phillips, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Highwater Press, and I've had the pleasure of working with Sarah, Robert, and Janine throughout this entire process of this 4-book series, and I'm so glad you could join us for our event tonight. Thank you so much. Before I turn it over to our host, Richard Van Camp, I do have a few housekeeping items that I'm going to read so I don't forget anything. I apologize for reading. So this book launch is being recorded. So if you don't want your image to show, please turn your cameras off. Also know that your microphones are turned off for the duration of the event. And if you'd like to also change your name, you can do that by clicking on the little dots on the right-hand corner of your image if you don't want your name to view or show in the recording. We welcome you throughout the evening to participate. There's a chat at the bottom that you can enter your questions in or comments. But please be mindful that we strive to facilitate the safest possible space for our authors and guests. So show kindness and respect to everybody in attendance. And finally, I just want to remind you that you can purchase copies of Dancing with Our Ancestors, Returning to the Yaqun River, and the first 2 books in this series through the website or in store at Iron Dog Books. They have copies, so if you're local, we encourage you to support your local booksellers or visit their website if you're not local to them. We'll be posting links in the chat, so keep an eye on the chat throughout our launch today. And I get the pleasure now to introduce to you Richard Van Camp, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a few years now. Richard, I'm not going to say how many, through his stories with us, and he just has one out now. I'm not going to talk about that. So Richard, a little bit about Richard, is a proud member of the Tz'licho, did I say that right, Nation from Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. He is the author of more than 26 books, including The Lesser Blessed, a feature film, the Eisner Award nominated graphic novel, A Blanket of Butterflies, and 3 Feathers, also a feature film, and also translated into 3 different languages. He is a contributor to the groundbreaking graphic novel anthology This Place, 150 Years Retold. And he is also the author of 5 collections of short stories, including Night Moves, the 6 baby books, including the award-winning Little You. Heartwarming. So I'm going to, because you're not here to listen to me, I'm going to turn it over to Richard. And please enjoy your evening. And once again, thank you for coming.
Yay, Kirsten, Masicho, Dante. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening at this beautiful virtual book launch. I want to say and raise my hands with absolute respect and admiration and awe to our authors and artists. We've got Sarah Florence Davidson, Robert Davidson, and Janine Gibbons. Welcome, Hawa, for being with us today, and congratulations on this wonderful series, the Sk'ad'a Stories Series. Today, we honor you for your magnificent series of 4 books. I know we're launching books 3 and 4, but I just want to hold these like beautiful little babies. I want to show everybody, because I'm not convinced everybody here realizes just how beautiful these are. And I really want to thank Highwater Press. In fact, let's do something really special. Everyone who shows up tonight, I have autographed books from Sarah and Robert. There must be somebody here who wants all 4 of these. Let's put somebody there's somebody here who can do a Google thing or put names in a hat. I want to mail these to somebody very special. They're autographed, they're beautiful, and it's the least that I could do. And I actually have a copy of Sarah's other book, Potlatch's Pedagogy, and I'll send that as well. It's the least that I could do. I really want to turn this into a giveaway and a celebration because I'm in awe of these books. So we have Learning to Carve Argillite, Jigging for Halibut with Chini, which means grandfather. We have Returning to the Yukon River. And this is what we're supposed to be launching tonight, but I want to host a giveaway for all 4 in the series. And we have Dancing with Our Ancestors. And these books just arrived last week. They're hot off the press. They're absolutely beautiful. Must see Cho, congratulations. I hope you're all very proud of yourselves. You should be. Must Cho for agreeing to have me, Richard Van Camp, as your host for your book launch series and to honor your work together. My friends, welcome. Can you please introduce yourselves because you are all so wonderful to me and I want to hear who you are in your own words. Also, I don't want to mess this up. So let's start with our wonderful elder, Mr. Robert Davidson. Robert, if you could start, and then your daughter, Sarah, and then I want to hear from Janine. In your own words, take your time. Masi Cho. Thank you.
His best words, muted.
Hi, my Haida name is Oat Sandlands, Eagle of the Dawn. I'm of the Chalk Lunas clan in Masset on Haida Gwaii. I'm a child of Claude and Vivian Davidson. My mother is from Heidelberg and my father's from Masset. And I've been working in the art world since I was 13. Sarah?
And his Instagram handle says he's a student of Haida art. My name is Sarah Florence Davidson. My Haida name is Anjak Gusandlans, which means Killer Whale Woman of the Dawn. I am the daughter of Robert Davidson, who just introduced himself. I'm also the daughter of Susan Davidson, who asks that I introduce her as a colonizer. And she was adopted by my great-grandmother, Florence Davidson, into the Yakutlanas clan. It's a Raven clan. And so my brother and I, both Ravens as a result of that adoption. Super, super excited to be here. And we're on unceded Semiahmoo territory. So really grateful to be able to join you all virtually. And to just to be here and to talk about the books and to see them out in the world. I need to say it's super exciting to see you hold them up. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. How
Wonderful. My name is Janine Gibbons, and I grew up in Petersburg, Alaska, but I was born in Ketchikan. I've got 4 generations in Ketchikan with my own children. My great grandmother was one of the first Haida school teachers. She was orphaned, and she was born in Chican. And right now in the news, we've got one of the oldest fish traps in the world came out of Chican Bay, and it just happens that my great-grandmother was born in Chican Village, though her family was from Haukan. And I'm very excited to see the books. I still do not have the physical books yet because I'm in Hawaii and I left before they arrived in Petersburg. So I'm very jealous right now. And thank you for having me here today. I'm so excited to see everyone and see everybody that's joined in today to hear us speak.
Masi Cho to all of you. Okay, I want to work with the co-authors first, and then we're going to hear from the master artist herself. My first question is for Sarah and Robert. How did you approach this lovely collaboration where you co-author Learning to Carve Argillite and Jigging for Halibut with Chini? Sarah, you are imagining your father as a young boy learning from his father so many wonderful things. How did that conversation and collaboration grow between you as father and his daughter. How did this happen?
Well, I'm very tickled that it has happened. I never thought of that it could be made into a children's story. Uh, my childhood is so different from today's childhood. Children of today. Uh, I was brought up in a village where we had to make our own things. We had to make our own toys. There was no ready-made toys, for example, and there was no um, video games. So all our activities were outside, in the forest, in the field, on the beach, on the water. And when Sarah decided to write the story, I was really moved on how she was able to put the words together, and it brought me right to that moment. It brought me right to that moment of learning from my dad and learning from my grandfather. So I really commend her for her writing abilities.
And I think what was so lovely for me is that, I was able to, it began with interviews and kind of carried over from Potlatch's pedagogy. People who've read Potlatch's pedagogy will recognize the story of jigging for halibut with Chinny. And so that story I had sort of imagined would make a wonderful picture book. And when I approached Portage and Main, they were really interested in having 4 picture books. And so, oh goodness, okay. And so what was really lovely is that we were able to continue on with the work. And so a little bit of the process for writing these stories is that I would interview my father for the 3rd book, Returning to the Yaccoon River. I actually interviewed my brother as well. And really worked with these interviews to kind of imagine days. I think of these as sort of picture book historical fiction, if you will, because the first 3 of them are really based on those interviews. And so then my father would read them to make sure that I had all of the information accurately. And so, figuring out tides and things like that was lots of texting, and super grateful to my father for being able to take my texts any time of day and respond and provide the information. And for me, it was really important that that the stories ring true. And so he would read them to make sure that I had the information correctly. And I feel tremendously grateful to have been able to continue on with the collaboration. And so books 1 and 2 are written from his perspective and sort of imagined because they happened before I was born. But books 3 and 4 were written from my perspective. And I wanted to continue the collaboration though, because, our memories aren't perfect. And so having the interviews and the conversations with people who were there and participated and hearing their perspectives and making sure that the books were accurate. And I know that you'll speak to this later, but really, really grateful that Janine was willing to do so much research to make sure that the visuals also reflected the experiences that we were trying to share with folks.
Wonderful. Well, what a joy to see you all here. And I'm really grateful. Again, we raise our hands to you all, to our honored guests who have joined us as witnesses to see this beautiful virtual book launch and get the gossip behind the magic. It's very important to us to get the gossip. Okay, here we go. In Dancing with Our Ancestors, Sarah, you celebrate the relationship the Haida have with their relations in Heidelberg, Alaska. I had the joy of watching the YouTube video that really complements this beautiful book. The YouTube video is called Beyond Being Silenced, Gia Isla. And I invite you all to watch it. Everybody here who's joining us and everyone who's going to be watching this recording, it is on YouTube. And I believe our friends at Highwater Press in the chat may be putting the links to the YouTube links. And also, Sarah, I really want to commend you. I can tell you are a matriarch in the making. I can tell that you're an educator, you're a visionary. You also have a pronunciation guide, and I'm going to ask that our dear friends at Highwater Press please put that into the chat so that people can follow along, because we never want to mispronounce anything. We want to be very respectful. So things like Yakun River or Chini, I learned simply by watching the pronunciation guide. And you also have a teacher's guide as well, which is going to be helpful to a lot of teachers and educators and librarians and parents. So I want to get to some questions. Get ready for the hot seat. Okay, we're going to get down to it. Sarah, for returning to the Yakun River, you write, you have this gift of total recall, and I don't know how you do that, but you do it so well. You write with total recall of your time with your family as you return to your fishing camp, your fishing cabin at the Yakun River, and celebrate the return of the salmon. Sarah, you've shared with me that Sk'ad'a is the Haida word for learn. My question to each of you, all three of you, is what do you want Haida people to know and feel and learn as they read your books? We'll start with Robert, please.
Well, I'm really like, for the past 50 years, I've been immersed in learning about who Haida was. And from learning who Haida was, I'm wanting to fast forward and bring it to the present. But I can't do that without knowing the history, and a lot of what has been written in the books are from my childhood experience to maturity. Like I feel there's so many gaps in relearning our history because of, for example, my grandparents. They were the very last generation of the ancient knowledge. And I say that because my dad's generation, they were the generation that were in the residential schools. And so they were denied that link that connects my grandparents' generation to my generation. And it's exciting for the children to experience that, what I've experienced and what Sarah and Leslie and Ben have experienced at the Yakun River, and also the Sk'ad'a Stories in Heidelberg that was hosted by Terlina and myself, bringing the dance screens up to Heidelberg. What it did was it opened up the door where many of the people in Heidelberg wanted to learn more about what the history of their clan, names of their clan, and the crests. So that that is a starting point. From that, we grow into learning songs, learning dances, and once we create that foundation, then we start to expand on it.
Masi Cho, thank you. Sarah?
Easy to follow that, eh? So I think for me, with some of the conversations, so I've been really lucky to be learning from my father, spending time with him, and over the past couple of years, and a lot of the knowledge he's been sharing with me comes from elders, comes from ancestors, and so I think we have a lot of excitement about the art that he does, but I think that there's also this knowledge about who Haida people are, what it means to be a good person, a dedicated person, an ambitious person, not in a negative way, but being self-sufficient. There were a lot of lessons that my father has shared with me over our time together about that were shared with him from his father, from his grandfather, from his great-grandmother, his grandmother, and I felt really excited about the possibility of my brother's children, for example, who never met these people, and I didn't meet my great grandfather, but being able to still connect with them and still learn from them. And so by inviting them into these stories, it creates this opportunity for people who are younger and younger generations to be able to connect with these elders in a way that might be a little bit more immediate. And I felt a lot of pressure. Here's the gossip. I felt a lot of pressure writing Returning to the Yaqoon River because that time spent there with my brother and my cousin was so important. And in some of the conversations that we had, I asked my father, I said, like, why did you bring us there? Why was it so important that we go there? And he explained to me that he really saw that as part of immersing us in the experience of being Haida. And so when I went to write this book, the Yaqoon River is, people aren't going there in the same way that we did when we were children. They still go there. But I felt this sort of like pressure to write a story that would invite people to want to continue to engage and learn from the land in that way. And so there's Fish Camp. And so I think for me, the hope was that people would find these connections, they would find these relationships. And I really, another reason for me in writing these stories is that I hope that others will look to their own experiences and find maybe an inspiration to share those stories, because it's been really exciting for me to hear the other learning stories of folks that I meet, the connections that people make when they read these stories. And so I guess my hope is that we feel excited about sharing stories from our lives.
Well, one more thought. When I was a child, the children's books were about Dick and Jane, and these stories would be more meaningful to the Haida people, or in that same experience up and down the coast here in BC.
Thank you. Janine,
What was the question? Yeah.
my question is, well, I really really want to thank Robert and Sarah for their answers. Janine, what do you want Haida people to know and feel and learn as they read your books?
Well, it was I almost started crying when you were holding up Dancing with Our Ancestors next to your face, because this is the first time I've seen somebody actually holding the books. And it's exactly how you're holding it is a mask for your face, right? So when you put that mask like this, you're wearing that mask, right? And so I wanted people to have that experience. If they're in the mirror and they hold it up, they are experiencing what it is to be Haida in some parts of it. My life experience is that I also didn't get to grow up. My earlier years, I lived my life kind of supernaturally, I would say. Like, that was my life experience, like, because I usually live in the woods or in the ocean. That's where I like to be in nature. And so I wanted people to experience that as I illustrated the way that I did. And then as I was working with Robert and Sarah, and with the words and the images, I was able to kind of merge all of our experiences together and our love for our people. Heidelberg in particular, my great grandma was one of the first school teachers there. She was sent to residential school, but when she was there, she learned Haida, or she was Haida, and then she spoke English, so she was able to bring that back. And so that was also a gift for my own self and my lineage, and for everyone else too. And I wanted it to be a very happy experience. And so that's, I really like that illustration. I love painting Robert and Terry Lynn. I wanted them to be happy and to be showing all this joy, the colors and the vibrancy of Haida culture, and mass culture in particular as well, is very important to me. And Ben and Sarah in that image, you know, the beauty of the weaving I wanted to incorporate to make sure that that was, I tried to touch on everything through the illustration so that a lesson for teachers, for lesson plans could be done. And those pictures of Ben, yeah, you know, it was, yeah, it was pretty emotional, honestly, some of that illustrating. Some of it was pretty tough to do, but it just kept going because, you know, we made it. So we're still here and we're still able to tell the stories, and I feel a lot of gratitude for that. So I wanted to make sure that was in all of the illustrations. And returning to the Yaqun River was really, that was a labor of love for all of us, I think, because there was a lot of different aspects of that book. One of my best girlfriends lives in a house that looks pretty much just like the A-frame there. So it's easy for me to some of that to illustrate because that's where I spend a lot of my time as well. And the joy of fishing, just, you know, and the magic of the water and riding around in a skiff and, you know, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that myself growing up. So hopefully that was put, yes, isn't that awesome? I love being in a boat. So it was easy to be in put myself in Sarah's feet as a child in that way, and the joy of like cutting open fish and gutting them and throwing the guts and, you know, cooking and learning from your elders. And yeah, I just, you know, I'm really, you know, eating fresh salmon. There's like nothing like it in the world. Truly, it's the best. It's the best food out there. So,
Richard, if I can interject.
Please do. Please
This is
do.
a very significant mask, and since Janine mentioned it, I'm wondering if my dad can tell us a bit about its greatest echo on the cover of Dances. It's absolutely the perfect mask to be on the cover, but it's one of those the behind the scenes that folks may not necessarily know the significance of that mask being on the cover of that book.
The greatest echo is a supernatural being. And the other word for it is Hunts Kill. Hunts Kill Anawa. Hunts is like reincarnation, and kill is voice. So it's a spirit voice. And I thought I labeled an elder up in Juneau, Walter Sokolov, as the greatest echo, because he talked a lot about the history and bringing the history knowledge to the present day, and I felt that's what Ben was doing. Ben was he is the greatest echo. His voice will sound for many generations for what he's accomplished in a very short time. Through his art, through being a great father and a great friend, and also his commitment to learning the art and the history of the Haida. And the greatest echo is, and he also danced it. It's a beautiful dance. It's very private, it's very quiet. There are two masks. One is the sound and the other one's the echo. And so whatever sound the first echo does, this one repeats that sound. And so it's very mesmerizing.
and that image in particular that I painted was from when Ben was dancing that mask at Celebration. I had photographed the Rainbow Creek dancers, and that image was Ben is actually in that mask.
I would like to actually acknowledge Ben Davidson. I knew Ben. I knew your son. Ben, I wanted to honor Ben today as well as all of you. My wife and I, Kiwi Martin, we went to Haida Gwaii for our honeymoon, and Ben and Tawny gifted us this beautiful Ben Davidson print, and our little one was in their mummy's tummy when this was gifted. And I was just sharing beforehand, we live in Edmonton, Alberta, and our mailman, Tim, he says, every time I walk by your house and I see that gorgeous Haida print, I see a woman giving birth. Isn't that beautiful? That's Ben Davidson. And I just really wanted to honor him and honor your family. He is dearly missed. And the beautiful thing about, and I'm sure it's bittersweet for you all, in the video that we talked about on YouTube, you do get to see Ben with his children. You do get to see Ben with his wife, Tawny. You do get to see Ben dancing. And he is beautiful. He is magnificent. He is cherished, and we will miss him forever. And he will live on through his teachings, his stories, his artwork, his love. Yeah, love is never wasted. And what you've done here is absolutely beautiful. I hope you're all so very proud of yourselves. So whoever wants to speak to this next question, take your time. I was curious, what do you want non-Haida like myself to know and feel and learn about Haida culture through your gorgeous series? Because so many of us are trying to reclaim our own family medicines, and it seems you're doing the good hard work. So many of us look to the Haida for leadership in terms of reclaiming and celebration. So my question again is, what do you want non-Haida like myself to know and feel and learn about Haida culture?
So for me, part of the I'm an educator, and I work with lots of different people, but spent a lot of time working with educators who are coming into the profession. And one of the things that is sort of a struggle is to understand Indigenous pedagogies, Indigenous approaches to learning. And so part of the inspiration for this series was to sort of offer these learning stories and these experiences of learning, because I guess my hope is that in engaging with these stories and learning from these stories, that people will come to understand the significance of this other way of teaching, a different way of teaching. And so each story has examples of teaching that's taking place. These stories came from stories that my father shared with me when I was asking him questions about how he learned, and they started in Potlatch's pedagogy, but then they, the idea to kind of turn them into these longer books was to be able to linger a little bit longer with those learning experiences. And my hope is that when I think of young folks, who are from different nations, I hope that they'll see those experiences, because I think that some of those experiences of learning from older people in their lives, those are universal. I think that, even though it's a fish camp, maybe on a river or, fishing on the ocean, most communities have a way that they're harvesting and having food come from the land. I hope that they see themselves. I hope that these stories offer different perspectives on Indigenous peoples, from what we hear in the media and what we see in the news. I want, these are stories just about children learning and playing and experiencing life. I hope that educators have an opportunity to understand the depth of this way of sharing knowledge. I just yesterday was talking to some educators about the power of story to teach, and a lot of the work that I do is trying to teach people using stories, through stories, and so having them engage directly with all of these stories and making meaning from them and learning about themselves, learning about other people through these stories. And my hope is that even if an educator from the downtown Vancouver doesn't have an opportunity to go out and learn how to fish from their grandfather, that they have this opportunity to kind of join my father and his grandfather, to kind of learn alongside that and maybe vicariously experience that. And I guess my hope is that we will start to have more respect for Indigenous contributions to education. It's a very powerful way to teach and to learn. I'm sort of learning from my father right now, using these other ways. And I think that it has the power to transform education. And I feel really excited about that, and hopeful, and hopeful that people may reconsider all of the different contributions that different people have to education. Oh,
The fishing or jigging for halibut. When I went fishing with Chinny in his dinghy that he built, it was about 14 feet long, and we were going out into open ocean. And I marvel at the confidence he had in that little boat out in the ocean, and the confidence came from that was his livelihood, and I couldn't visualize myself taking my grandchild out in the ocean in that little boat. But and also the other part of that is we lived by the seasons. The Yukon River, the salmon, the sockeye returned in May, June. And so that we were taken out of school as children to help in harvesting the salmon. So what that did was it took us out of the school, and so I always wanted to have perfect attendance award. But that never happened because we're always going by the seasons, the clam digging, the sockeye season, and so on. So I feel these stories will add to the depth that we are reclaiming as a people. For so long, we've never had a voice.
Thank you so much. Janine, do you want to have a little, do you want me to repeat the question again? I know we're all in awe every time Robert and Sarah speak. My question, the original question was, you and I were both looking a little lost, like, how do we even take the stage after that? My question, Janine, to you is, what do you want non-Haida like myself to know and feel and learn about Haida culture?
Well, I hope when when these books are around the world, that people pick them up and have more questions, and then they start to research, and then by researching, they open up a whole new world. But also just by having the books, that whole new world opens up to them. So like, say if you're in the inner city somewhere and you think, wow, people live like this, like they just couldn't even conceptualize, in their apartment on the 40th floor, that people are out there, like Robert's saying, in a handmade wood dinghy. Like, I actually, when I was illustrating, my neighbor actually handmade a dinghy. And so I was able to paddle around or row around in a wood dinghy. And I thought, how the heck did these guys do that? Like, yeah, that's pretty brave. With the creaking of a boat and, just, and then to like gaff a fish and then club it. And, just as, what was the saying? You have to make your mind strong. That is you really do have to make your mind strong. I mean, because if you're tackling a halibut, like, wow, that's brave, and that's a lot of confidence. And I wanted that confidence to be seen throughout the illustration. That you have to have a lot of power within yourself, like Robert and Robert Davidson Sr. And I wanted to convey that. And then with the last book, with Dancing with Our Ancestors, I wanted to start to kind of show, in particular, there's in that first page, there's Little Frog. you'll see in the introduction, as you can see, there's like a frog over in the corner, and there's the mask, and then there's the screen, that all those things, because sometimes people go, well, what is that? What is that? You know, a lot of people don't really understand the symbols. And so I wanted to start to incorporate so people could see what the symbols, what they actually mean. And then when you start to, you know, you can pick this up as a science book, you know, you can pick this up and go, you know, I mean, if you do form line, you just go out into nature as well, and you can start to see what all the symbols are, you know, and where the artwork comes from. And so, and then, yes, to go so far as this, I mean, this is like, you know, Haida's some of the most advanced artwork, I think, personally, out there. You know, when we get to start to see our artifacts that are in the museums, for instance, right now I'm seeing a lot of masks from Berlin and other things that are in museums and other places, where we get to see, oh, you know, those symbols represent us, but they also represent clans, where we see those symbols and go, well, I'm frog, you know, or I'm beaver, and I'm bear, I'm all of these things. And so those things are opened up when you see that. And then also people in other places can start to go, oh, now I start to understand what I'm seeing. Instead of it just being an object, it's something that they're connecting to and understanding with the stories. And for myself personally, I'm I love old books. I collect a lot of the Haida books that are like out of print now. And a lot of those are in black and white, just like learning to carve archlight. Is that what the second book is? Yes. So you'll open up that book and you'll see Haida myths. And that was, I love that book so much too. Robert, what does that book mean to you?
Well, that was the our learning curve. Like when I was learning, my dad insisted I start carving when I was 13, and at that time there were only 3 or 4 elders in Macedon, about the same in Sk'ad'a, and these people were that link from the ancient, from the classical or the old masters to the present day. And that book was the only access we had to the old masters, because all the art was gone in Macedon and Sk'ad'a. There were a couple of very weathered totem poles in Sk'ad'a and none in Macedon when I was a child. And all the other older villages, the totem poles were there, but they were pretty far gone. So that book, Haida Myths, was our catalog. It was our inspiration, and looking through my grandfather's book or my dad's book, the most soiled page in that book would be one of their favorite to copy.
Thank you, everybody. Masicho, thank you. Janine, we've spoken to the co-authors. I want to just get the skinny from you on the artwork, because you've been working together with father and daughter for, I imagine this has been, how many years has this been?
4.
Has it been 4 years? 4 incredible years.
For
So
sure.
here's my question. How did you meet Sarah and Robert? And what was your approach to this series? Were you sent photos, audio files, photographs? What did you have to research, and what have you learned from working with Sarah and Robert?
This is where the gossip comes out, yeah? No. Well, I feel like I've known Robert and Sarah, just like when we asked what does it mean to be Haida, I've only physically met them in person a few times, but I think I've known them for at least 20,000 years, you know, for a very long time and many other lifetimes. And we're here to, you know, continue that lineage from all of our other lives together. I would say that is what it means to be Haida. Part of that is that experience. I first met them together, though, at Haida Modern during the Vancouver Film Festival. I just happened to be in Vancouver and went to the, right? We've met. No, just
It was so short. And I was telling Richard, I said, I don't know that we've ever actually met. And I'm glad you reminded me of that, because we've had conversations on the phone, we've had like FaceTimes, but I'm really grateful you reminded me.
But yes, and then Robert and Terry Lynn I saw in Juneau during Celebration 2018, and I photographed them. I'm an avid photographer. I document everything just because I know that it's so important to document these things, and I don't really rely on always other people to provide me imagery, I guess. And so throughout all of those books is a combination of Robert and Sarah's images that they sent to me, images that I took myself, going to Haida Gwaii multiple times. I mean, because I'm from southeastern Alaska. I would have been in Haida Gwaii many more times since COVID, but you know, we got blocked out. So but yes, I'm an avid documenter in so many ways. I know that it can be overwhelming for people, but my memory is with visuals, and so I need to take photographs and like the Dancing with Our Ancestors. Some of those were from the videos, that video that Beyond Being Silenced. But then also many of the images are also images that I took during some celebration as well. Because a lot of the masks were there, but then I also took photographs of the masks in Juneau during celebration. Those are from the film. Yeah, I loved the film that was done. It was just, there was a lot of really great things to be able to work from that imagery. And then also a lot of Haidas are crazy photographers like myself, so there's plenty online through Facebook to see what people are doing and to live, and you know, everybody's documenting all the time, so it's pretty, you know, that's pretty easy to do. But did I answer the question? Yes, and that was a combination of imagery. I took that picture in Heidelberg. And when I was there a few years ago, and then that's obviously Ben and Sarah and your grandmother. Do you want to talk about your grandmother a bit, Sarah?
I'm sure that's two photographs from Uli Stelzer, who photographed. She did extensive photography of our family and you know, different events. So those photographs are from the book A Haida Potlatch that she did, and it was wonderful to see the way Janine integrated. And what I was going to just briefly share is that there were no photographs, as you can imagine, for the first book. And so Janine, when she was describing earlier about the dinghy, is she actually went out and had to reenact a lot of the story and take photographs to work from. So that was pretty remarkable. And there are some images of that, I think both on Janine's Instagram, but also in the teacher guide, just showing some of the really interesting lengths that she needed to go to get the illustrations to be just right.
Yes, I had a paper halibut. Well, at the time, because I had to walk around on the beach and, you know, I be in the boat and all those things, and so there's no way I could just carry around a dead halibut. So you know, and I'm from a fishing village myself, also, and where I live, besides when I'm in Hawaii, which is also fishermen. Yeah, some of that I really did experience. That with that dinghy in particular, my neighbor actually made that dinghy, and actually milled all of that wood and fully made every part of that boat. So I got to experience the creeks and cricks, and it just happens to be that land that my parents have there's the ancient fish trap on it. And so I was able to, really, I take in a lot of ancestors when I'm illustrating. I guess that's the other part, is that I've only done Haida and Tlingit stories myself that I've illustrated. And so, it's like a full body, full spirit kind of experience. And so, and I spend a lot of time by myself when I'm illustrating. So I'm really connecting with the spirits and our ancestors, and the same when I'm looking through those books, and I'm like, physically, and you don't see all of the images that I've recreated, but I have to spend a lot of time with a lot of men, and their spirits, and kind of trying to, I would say, kind of change the energy from like the traumatic stuff that's happened and whatever they were experiencing while they were creating that artwork, and kind of like moving that energy. This is my favorite. But I can say it is kind of almost my favorite of all of them, because there's so much that goes into that. What does that image create for you, Robert and Sarah, before I talk about it?
Well, my mother and my dad worked pretty hard all their life, and this was a very rare moment when I saw him actually relaxing when he was in Hawaii, him and Sarah, his second wife. And I know he was pretty proud of that hat, local boy from Hawaii. And he was actually floating around in the water. I've never seen him so relaxed. And that reminds me of that moment, and also brings me back to the Yukon River, because I felt the camaraderie was really solid between my dad, my brother, and myself, and there's a lot of good moments that we shared. Sometimes just standing on the bank with the net strung across the river, just waiting for the salmon to hit the net. Just those moments where not many, we didn't say very much to each other, but we knew how to work with each other. There was one other embarrassing moment for me. My dad, he strung the rope across the river. The river could be pretty strong at low tide and incoming tide. So the rope was to pull the boat with the net, to set the net across the river. And my dad was busy untangling the net, getting it ready for us to pull across the inlet. Reg was in the bow and I was in the front, in the stern. And my dad said, "Now pull." And so I was pulling the opposite way from where we should have gone. And that they always called me the city boy. And that confirmed the name they gave me.
Bless you, Cho, Robert. Janine, you and I had a quick phone call today just to make sure that I was following protocol. I really wanted you to just talk a little bit about this particular picture, because putting this cap and of course this moment in time was really important to you. But you were saying that you know quite a bit about the travel that the Haida achieved so long ago. Can you speak to us a bit about that? Because my jaw dropped when you shared with me what you have found in your research, and I think the world needs to know what you know. So please give us the gossip.
Well, guess what? The Haida's been a lot of places, right? Those Haida canoes are pretty amazing. And so when I saw that picture, originally I smiled, because for me it was also a lighthearted image of Claude. Like I had done a lot of sketching of his argillite stuff that just wasn't shown in the imagery. And so when I when I saw that photograph, I was like, there's this very lighthearted picture of him that I had to do, but then there was even better yet, because it's kind of a cheeky page too, where that it merged with the cheekiness of being a fisherman, and then also our ancient travel that we did. So even though it says local boy Hawaii and he got it on vacation, you know, we have ancient history here in Hawaii. The Haidas do. They have ancient oral tradition of us being here long time ago, you know, and so there is an ancient story of the Haidas, 4 Haidas getting blown away at sea and making their way to the Big Island here, and that was part of my why I'm here in Hawaii, was that years ago I'd been given this story when I was in Haida Gwaii, yeah, so it was kind of my mission to really, as I do, like really understand what that meant. And so over many trips, I learned, I'm not here for quite a couple of those trips because they were not that much, it was kind of crazy times to learn of our ancient connection with the Hawaiians, and where we landed here and then made it back to Haida Gwaii. But there's also Tlingit stories of them being blown away at sea from Sitka, for instance, and making it to Hawaii and being brought back by the Hawaiians in their canoes. They have songs about the stories. There's ancient stories of us, I mean, not only just from the 1800s, a lot of the men that were taken from Haida Gwaii or that were on the seal ships were in Japan, for instance. Recently on Facebook, I shared a story about, I think it was maybe 11 Haidas that were on the seal ships, and they were on their way to Japan. And those days, they were non-native people, like white, like we always, it says whites, so I don't always like to use that term, but the whites always, you know, they like to hire the Haidas to bring to do the sailing, and so, but they would bring their own ships. And there's a story about these guys on the way to Japan, and they actually rescued some Japanese guys that on their way to Japan. They were outside of Hawaii, and there were some Japanese guys that got blown out of Japan, and they rescued these Japanese guys just outside of Hawaii and brought them to Honolulu. and so, but we've got ancient stories all the way to Aotearoa, New Zealand. We've got the potatoes of South America, Peru. You know, we've been all over the place, and so, you know, and I mean, the proof is literally in the potatoes on how far we've traveled, and not only from the potatoes, but our stone tools. And I spent a lot of time going to different museums and looking at the muddlers and the poi pounders that they call them here, but that connection that we have of stone tool, just the stone tools alone will connect all of our people of the Pacific Ocean. But that we've been to so many places, and that story really hasn't been told from our perspective. And even when I'm here in Hawaii, that a lot of times our region of Canada and British Columbia and from southeastern Alaska, that knowledge is kind of just left out of museums, honestly. And it's like, well, hey, we got all those same tools. Why isn't anybody else writing about the fact that we're in all these places as well, and we're kind of left out of that? And so that's what that hat means to me. Local boy, that we're local, but the localness is you know, the Pacific Ocean, the entirety of this Pacific Ocean, because not only are we connected from the tools, we're also connected from our blood types and our birthmarks. We've got a lot of people that are, for instance, with the B type DNA have a blue birthmark that is throughout the entire Pacific Ocean. And in times of residential school and those things, a lot of times babies were taken away from them because they felt like people were beating the babies, but it's actually a birthmark that connects a lot of people in the Pacific Ocean. So it looks like a hat from Hawaii that says local boy, because we're local to a lot of places. And so I guess that there's just a lot of connections in that way from that one little hat. You know, it means a lot.
Masi Cho. So, I mean, my jaw dropped today when you and I were on the phone and you were saying that, you know, the Haida had traveled to Aotearoa, New Zealand, Hawaii, Japan. Please do a book about this. Please do a book about this. Please, please. Why am I at 51 years of age only learning about this now? The world deserves to know this. They really do. Thank you, Janine. Sarah, Janine and I were talking today about of all the books in the series, the one page that floored both of us is actually from Dancing with Our Ancestors. And Sarah, we shared with you the page that really moved our hearts. And we were wondering, Sarah, if you could please, in your own words, with your beautiful voice, you're the songbird of your generation, Sarah. Can you please read this most profound page from Dancing with Our Ancestors?
Just to contextualize it a little bit, this was a moment that I had at the Ga'isla in Heidelberg. I was just sort of surrounded and immersed by, surrounded by Haida language, people dancing, people singing, multiple generations. And so it was a very emotional moment for me. And so it was so important to include it in the book. So as I watch from the side, I think about the laws that tried to stop us from gathering, to stop us from singing our songs, to stop us from wearing our regalia, and to stop us from dancing. They wanted to stop us from being Haida. No laws stop us today. Today, our history is recorded in our art, our stories, our dances, and our songs. Today, we dance with our children, so our culture cannot be stolen again.
Hawa, thank you so much. Bravo team, I raise my hands up to you with absolute respect, gratitude, and admiration. Masi Cho, my last question is, lie to me if you have to, are you working on more books together as a team? Because I really do feel this is the dream team. You can't stop now. Don't you dare stop the love train, the Haida love train. What are you working on? What's going on?
Let me just say that at this point, there aren't any plans. It's not that it won't come to happen. There are so many stories. But I will say that we're really, really thrilled to see these ones in the world. And as Janine mentioned, like this started in January of 2019. And actually, before then, but that was sort of when we actually started collaborating. And so it's been quite a marathon to continue on through the pandemic and through all of these things. And so I think right now, I won't speak for Janine, right now for me, I'm just so happy to see them out in the world. and it might take me a little while before I'm ready to think about more. I have other projects on the go right now, but I'm so happy to see them all out in the world together. And Janine asked me when they arrived to photograph them all together, and it was really quite wonderful to just see them, because they were intended to be this looking at my father's life. Oh, and that's your signature. I was looking to see who signed your book. So for me, it's just wonderful to see this complete set out in the world, and I'm open to what may come in the future, but that I won't speak for Janine.
Janine, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm actually working on a really large project where I'm doing form line finally, and combining the form line with my kind of realism and history base. We have a large ancient walk that's being finished. And so I finally, in my home community of Petersburg, Alaska, Sk'ad'a, get to tell the story of the Tlingit history there that hasn't been told. So I'm hopefully we'll get some totem pole carvers to do some polls there, because it's Tlingit and Haida. Not this nudge nudge, if anybody wants to take on a special project. But that, yeah, I'm working on a very big project right now, but that should be over the next year. And then hopefully I would love to do that, like you're saying, the story of ocean travel and to tell that history and to make that connection with all of our island people. I hope somebody hire me to do that, because I would love to do that next after this project. So that's what's right now.
Beautiful. Okay. Robert, Uncle, what are you working on right now?
I just completed a painting yesterday, and I don't have an image in front of me to show it, but there's nothing holding it together. It's just beautiful shapes. And so I titled it No Connection. And that is a statement on the environment with the corporations and government. There's no connection to address the crisis we're in right now. And I just completed actually 2 other projects. One is called Drying the Tears, and that has to, it's a statement on us who are left with the traumatic experience of the residential schools and the laws that governed us for several decades. And Drying the Tears are, it's really about our responsibility to do that. It would be more meaningful that we address that situation. And the project before that was We Were Once Beyond Being Silenced. So a lot of what I'm doing is really about our recovery as a nation, as a people.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Janine. I hope you are very proud of yourselves. I hope you feast well tonight. It has been my privilege to host the virtual book launch for your gorgeous series. As you can see, some of these books are autographed by our authors, and we're going to pick one lucky person from tonight, and I'll mail them. So we're going to ask Kirsten from Highwater Press to somehow, from this wonderful gathering, pick a name, and I'll mail it from Edmonton, Alberta. And I will also include these beautiful books, Magical Beings of Haida Gwaii, written by Terry Lynn Williams Davidson and Sarah Florence Davidson, illustrated by Judy Hilgeman and Alyssa Koski. I'll throw that into the mix. And there's also a beautiful coloring book that accompanies this. This is Magical Beings of Haida Gwaii. And again, this is Terry Lynn Williams Davidson, Sarah Florence Davidson, and Jad Tla Paula Vernell, illustrated by Judy Hilgeman and Alyssa Koski, with artwork by the great Robert Davidson. Hoka! And of course, we really want to honor Sarah for Potlatch's pedagogy. Anytime I get this in the house, I get, I'm very lucky with Highwater Press sending me copies. It doesn't stay very long. There's usually somebody, Sarah, who's walking in your footsteps, who's looking for the one book that they can show the Academy to really challenge the status quo. So some lucky winner tonight is going to win all of these. It's the least that I can do for being witness and as the MC for tonight. And I really want to thank Highwater Press for hosting us. A lot of hard work went into this. Again, Robert, Sarah, and Janine, I hope you're all very proud of yourselves. I'm so very proud of you bless you, bless your families, bless your work. You're doing incredible work, and you're giving courage to the rest of us to do our own good work. Honored guests, witnesses, we thank you for joining us this evening. Masicho, Hawa, have a great night, and may you return safely to your home fires. You're actually probably sitting in your homes right now, but traditionally we would say, return safely to your home fires. You have our blessings and our gratitude. Masicho, have a great night, everybody. Bless you all. Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.